Alright guys, welcome to another weekly market focus. And before we look at the pairs or the opportunities we have for next week, so let's do a quick trade recap and see what happened last week. So I'm just going to go straight into the Discord community. So last week we had a couple of trade setups and I was looking at the buy opportunity on BTC. So I'm just going to start from here. So this was a trade we had on the 13th. This was a good one, but on the 16th, and because of what was happening on the DXY last week, I was expecting those sales to come in so we can take the buys. So when we had this opportunity on the 16th, I was looking for a buy opportunity on Bitcoin around here. So we got in on the trade. It started playing out to our direction. So we had a break even right here, and then eventually we closed this trade at break even, because when we did a reanalysis, we realized the setup was like the timing wasn't correct, so we had to take this setup say another time. So on the 19th, I reattempted the buys on BTC, and this trade I'm currently holding this position. So this is my entry as of when I took the trade right here, and currently I've had my stops move to break even, and that's it for BTC. So I'm holding this one presently to see how far we can ride with this wave that is coming in. Now let's look at the other pairs. So on US30 for last week, I took a buy on this as well. My entry was right here and I got stopped out on this position. I had a loss as well on, I think, NAS100. So on NAS100 as well, we took a buy on this and we got stopped out on this as well. So US30 was a loss, NAS100 was a loss, and we're currently holding positions on BTC, which we're just reattempting the buys. It's currently moving in our favor, so I'm just going to manage this accordingly and see what we can make out of this. So let's move straight into what we have for this week. And as usual, the first thing we have to look at is the DXY, because this tells you everything. So from last week, I was expecting prices to move to the downside and test an area like this. So we had this psych number right here, and we had this trend that is building to the upside. So I was expecting prices to do two things. So move to the downside and test the psychological number, and not just the psychological number, but test the trend line as well, because prices has been respecting areas like this. So I was expecting a move to this area, a test of it, and then a possible move to the upside, or a break and then a move to the downside. So this didn't happen. Price did something completely different, and that's fine. Again, all we do when we do the weekly analysis or the weekly focus is just to anticipate and see what price is most likely going to do. So as of now, we haven't prices on this psychological number of 106, and again, psych numbers are very big with my analysis. So with prices sitting on 106, I'm going to move down to lower time frame just to break down this piece of price action right here, and it's going to tell us a lot coming into next week. So we'll move straight to the 8-hour time frame. I'll make this bigger as well. So on the 8-hour time frame, we've had prices move to 106. It breached 106 and then moved back into this area, and right now price tested this area right here. So if price is finding it difficult to go below 106, it means there is a high possibility prices will continue moving to the upside. So there's a high possibility coming into next week we might see the DXY moving to the upside. So this is just going off of what is happening on the 8-hour time frame. But when we move to lower time frames and we start analyzing each wave separately, so you analyze this move, you analyze this move to the upside, and you analyze this move to the downside. When you analyze it separately, it tells you a different story. So I'm going to move straight to the 4-hour time frame. So on the 4-hour time frame, again, we had prices moving to the downside. We had a test of this area right here, and we have prices now putting in this bearish candle. So there's a high possibility we might have prices test this psych number again. So now this is going off of the psych numbers, because if you've been watching my content, you remember every time we go, so if there's a psych number right here and you go through this number and you get a test, you want to see it testing multiple times just for you to confirm and to say there's a high possibility that price is not going through this point. So you might then see prices moving to the upside. So having this concept in mind, I'm expecting the DXY again to drop to the downside. Now this drop to the downside might come to areas like this, and it might even go lower. So just going off of the psych numbers, first of all, we should expect prices to test 106 one more time, and if it finds it difficult to go through 106, then we should expect prices to move to the upside. Now with prices coming down to test 106, there is a high possibility we might have these prices testing areas like this and even moving again to the downside to test this area and this psych number, which is what we saw from the daily time frame. So to test an area like this and this psych number. So there's a high possibility we'll have sellers coming in next week, but the problem is, how far are the sellers going to take prices to the downside when you look at the DXY? So still looking at the 4-hour time frame. Now with this in mind, I'm going to step down to the 1-hour time frame. So I'm expecting these sellers to come in and test 106, sorry, and even go lower than 106 and maybe test areas like this before the buyers can come in. So for the buyers to come in, going off of my analysis, for the buyers to come in, I need to see a test of 106 or maybe lower areas like this, and then the buyers come in, or we get prices breaching this area, moving lower to test say 105 and this trend line, and we see prices moving again to the upside. So there's a lot of scenarios that is building up, and that's why I'll look at the hourly time frame to see if there's anything different. So on the hourly time frame, I'll clean this real quick. Same thing on the hourly time frame. So this is a piece of price action I've been looking at with those in my community. So we've been looking at this piece of price action closely, and as I told you, I'm not going to go into detail, but you have to analyze this piece of price action. You need to analyze this piece of price action. You need to analyze this piece of price action. So the way we look at it in the community, this is a setup like this. There's something building up already, and that is why we're expecting prices to move again to the downside and test 106 and even go lower to test areas like this before you see buyers coming in. So going off of this, that was the reason why we took these opportunities on BTC. If you look right here, so we took these opportunities on BTC. So I reattempted these buys on BTC, going off of that analysis or going off of that concept as well, and that anticipation. So with having this in mind, knowing that prices would test say 106, so we'll have sellers coming in, then we're expecting the prices of BTC to move to the upside. So that's why we're currently in the BTC trade. So coming into next week, my primary focus is to see prices test 106 or even go lower to test areas like this. And if I'm going off of what is happening on the daily time frame, real quick, if I'm going off of what is happening on the daily time frame, we should see sellers coming deeper to areas like this or even test this area before you see prices moving again to the upside. So that's it for the DXY. And just having this, again, you need to anticipate in both directions. So let's say I'm wrong with this, so we'll step down to the hourly time frame. Let's say I'm wrong and prices do not move to the downside. What happens then? So if prices decide to move to the upside, so let's say prices hold at this point coming into next week and it decides to move to the upside, Now, because I already had my pre-analysis or my pre-anticipation for prices to move to the downside, and when I look at pairs like this, and this, and gold, going over what is happening on the DXY with my pre-anticipation for prices to move to the downside, if price does something different and moves to the upside, it's so easy for me to take opportunities in the opposite direction to what I was anticipating before. So this is just a focus. This is what I'm expecting to see, and if it doesn't happen, that is fine. I'm just going to switch my buyers and then look for opportunities in the opposite direction, and I'll show you real quick. So let's look at the pair, say US30 for example. So with US30, so right now we've had this move to the downside. So the interesting thing about US30, if you're just going off of, say, this trend, you had price putting in lows, which is very easy for you to see, and price breached this area, and this is the most recent low on US30. The interesting thing about this pair is, going off of the trend that has been moving to the downside, we've had this trend breached already. So this for me is no longer a powerful trend to the downside, just looking at it from this. And because we've had this breach, the only thing that makes this move to the downside still in play, or if there's a possibility for us to take sales on US30, it's also because of this psych number right here of 38,000. So in as much as we violated this downtrend and we had prices moving to the upside, we're still holding on 3800. So price is finding it difficult to go past an area like this. And so going off of the DXY again, let's say prices decide to hold at this point and move to the upside, which is opposite to my anticipation, which is a movement to the downside. I'm going to look at the pair like US30 and go in for sales on this pair. This is straightforward. This is easy. It's so clean. There is no complication on this. And see how clean the charts are, and see how clean the price action is. So price is telling you we're moving to the downside. We've had this breach here, and we're having difficulty to go past 38,000. So if the DXY decides to move to the upside, this for me is a sell. Now let's look at NAS100. So NAS100 aligns with my previous, or it aligns with my first anticipation on the DXY. So remember, we're looking for, so coming into next week, if prices move to test 106, to test areas like this, and to fulfill this area, say on the daily time frame, I'm looking at NAS100 to take buying opportunities on this pair. And this is so easy as well. So I'm looking for buying opportunities on this pair. So we've had prices moving to the downside, making lower lows and lower highs, lower lows and lower highs, lower lows and lower highs. Right now we're sitting on a psychological number of 17,000. So if price finds it difficult to go past 17,000, so if price keeps hovering around this area, then I'm looking for, say we'll put a trend line right here real quick. Once price gets a breach of this area, that tells you there's a high possibility these prices will move to the upside. But before that happens, you can already tell, because there's this difficulty for price to go past 17,000. So I'm looking at this area of 17,000 right here, which is a psychological number, 17,000. When you combine this with a trend line, so for example this, if you really want to get involved with the buys on this, I look at it differently. So I might already see a setup or an entry signal before this even bridges to the upside. So you might look at it differently because you have a different setup or you have something else you're looking at. But basically, just going off of what price is doing, if price is moving to the downside and it finds it difficult to go past an area like this, the easiest way for you to get involved in this is for you to wait for a break you get a pullback and you look for those buying opportunities. So I do it differently. We do it differently in the community. So we have different entries and at different points, and I can put all of that right here. So let's look at the S&P 500. So the S&P 500 and NAS100 seem to be like they're aligning the same. So we'll have a similar move. So we've had prices moving to the downside on the S&P 500, making lower lows and lower highs. And right now we've had price testing this psychological number and it's pulling down. So if price finds it difficult to go past this point, we should expect prices to move to the upside. Again, you look at the DXY. If this sells coming on the DXY, then the buys on the S&P 500 will be a very good one. The buys on NAS100 will be a good one as well. And remember, I took, say, I did the buys on NAS on US30 and NAS100, and all of these buys didn't play out, so I took a loss on this. So if the anticipation we have on the DXY goes through, so if our anticipation on the DXY goes through and we get these sales on the DXY, then it's going to be a reattempt for me on the S&P 500 to reattempt the buys on the S&P 500 and to reattempt the buys on NAS100 as well. And if we flip the coin and let's say the DXY decides to hold at this area and move to the upside, then I'm looking for sales on US30. Now let's look at the last pair. I think is gold. So with gold we have prices. Oh, I think I forgot, because we have a position in on gold. I'm just going to show you real quick. We have a current position running on gold as well. So I have a sell on gold. So I'm in a drawdown on gold right now. So I took a sell on gold and we're currently in a drawdown. So those in my community had a different entry. So they had a better entry, let's say. So I got in on gold around here. Was it here? I took a sell on gold here. Yeah, so right now I'm in a drawdown, but those in the community got in a little bit, they got a better price, so they had their entries here. So my stops is just right here. So looking at what is happening on the DXY, first of all, just to manage that trade, like the position I have on gold, if the DXY continues moving to the downside to test 106, to test this area, or to test the structure we have on the daily time frame again, which is this one, to test an area like this or this trend line, this might be very difficult for my gold sales to move to the downside, because we might get prices pulling back up and it might take me out on this one, which is fine as well. So depending on what happens on the DXY, price might just move to the upside and take me out on this position, and which is fine, it's okay. So you take that as -1, you move and look for another trading opportunity. So let's do something quick on gold. So just going off of the psych numbers, price is finding it difficult to go past this psychological number. So we had this attempt right here, and we've had this attempt right here. This is another attempt, and price keeps holding at, say, 2400. So just going off of the psychological numbers, we should expect prices to move to the downside if this area keeps holding, like right here. And for me, I'm looking at an area like this. So a movement to an area like this before buyers might say reattempt, or sellers might just breach this area and you see prices moving to the downside. So that is me just going off of what is happening with the psych numbers, and going off of what is happening on gold in terms of a trend line. It might be a little bit difficult here. So we have, say, give me a second. If you look at it from an area like this, you've had this trend line. So prices moving to the upside, testing this trend line, making higher highs and higher lows. And right now price has tested this and it's difficult for price to make higher highs. So I'm going to move this lower. So okay, so with the trend line, we've had price making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs right here, higher lows. There's a higher high, there's a low. It takes out this high. It made this high. This is the most recent high right here, and this was the pullback that gave us, no, this was the pullback that gave us this high. And right now we had another pullback here, and price found it difficult to go past an area like this. So with this happening on gold, we've had this trend to the upside getting violated here. So now we're testing an area of 2400. We should expect sellers to come in. We should expect sellers to come in. So there are two pairs. So I'm going to put this on the hourly time frame. So let's say the DXY again, hourly time frame. Sorry, I'm going to clean this real quick. So let's say the DXY for some reason, the DXY decides to move to the upside. I'm going to hold my positions on gold to take this to the downside. So I'm in this sales already. So I'm going to hold this. If the DXY decides to move to the upside, then I'm holding my sales on gold, and I'm looking for an opportunity to take sales on US30. Now, if the DXY decides to move to the downside to test an area of say 106 and to complete or to test the trend line that is building on the daily time frame and stuff like that, then I'm looking at NAS100 for a buy. I'm looking at the S&P500 for a buy as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities coming into next week. You just have to stay patient. You need to stay consistent. And when you do your focus, make sure you're consistent with the focus. You're using the same principles every week, and you're looking for the same setups every week as well. And it's just going to make the whole process easy for you. So this is my analysis. This is what I'm looking at. Those are the opportunities I'm watching, and I have some positions currently running. I'm going to manage this as well. So that is it for this week's market focus, guys. If you found this interesting, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and see you during the next one. Bye for now.